So thank you guys for coming. As I understand, this is an entrepreneurship lecture series. This is the first. And so I assume that you might be interested in what is this thing about. Maybe you want to start your own internet company. Maybe you already started your startup or just curious. And so I try to phrase the whole story about what I have learned and what I've seen growing Prezi into what it is today. And I hope that we can keep this quite informal. So I'm very happy if you stop me, if you ask a question. I won't use all the 2 hours. I think it's extremely long. I think I can fit in like 40 minutes and then you can ask questions. Okay, so before I dive into what I will talk about, I just want to jump right away where we are today to give you the scale of things, like how it is. We started 2009 and today we have like 29 million users. We have 1.5 million new users each month. So the growth is pretty rapid. And we have 160 fantastic employees. And part of them in San Francisco, part of them in Budapest. So it's a pretty large company that is doubling every year. It's one of the few very high growth potential startups that is coming from Europe. There are not that many coming from Europe. And also in Silicon Valley, we are, in a nice position today. And just, I don't know what is interesting here, the founder of PowerPoint really likes it. By the way, Prezi is this presentation tool I'm using now with this all this zooming, if you haven't seen it yet. Yeah, and all the nice magazines like it. But I get back to that. So, what I want to talk about is briefly what it is, what we do, because I don't want to just say it's a presentation tool and then not talk more about it, because when you do a startup and when you're really driven by your vision, which is very typical with internet companies because of the broad effect you have on a lot of people's lives, you really work a lot to define your vision and what it is that you really want to do. And I think it's interesting if I can share it with you. But then I will spend actually more time on our learnings, like how we did it from day one, all the failures, all the little things, how it started, up to the point where we are today, and what are we doing next. Okay? So that's the plan. Let's see. Okay, so what this whole thing is about. And it's going to be a bit of a mind stretch. I'm sorry, but I really enjoy this part. So, yes, it's a presentation tool, but before we get into presentations, I want to talk about something else. When you are at work, you're required to do different things. And what you're required to do, it has been changing over time. And this is like a pretty long time scope. Basically, before the Industrial Revolution, the most successful humans were the strongest ones who could lift heavy things and who could fight with big swords. And when the Industrial Revolution happened, mostly in this city, then suddenly the smartest people were the most successful. I think it's very cool. What is a much more interesting, this is like really old thing, but what is much more interesting that most of our schooling and what has been very important in the last century is that we study to remember things, that we memorize things, remember data. And the shocking thing is that with the advance of computing and Wikipedia, Google, all these things that maybe some of the teachers don't like, actually make it not that interesting and valuable anymore that you'd memorize lots of things. So what is left and what is required for many of us when we do our work in wherever we are on this planet today is how we can combine all this information, how we can envision new things that are not existing yet, how we can become creative, right? Again, this has been repeated a lot, but I think it's quite interesting if you zoom out and see this rather big change. And the thing is that this is actually not just like a leisure thing that, oh, it's nice to be creative, why not be creative? But it's happening at the same time that we are such a successful species that we are really defining the course of our planet. No, we are having such an impact on the environment that the planet is changing. And this really requires more and more people to think ahead, think about the future, and have skills, build skills to envision things that in the past has only been required by like a small set of professionals, like, I don't know, creative thinkers, all these kind of people. So basically, I would like to state that creativity matters, and it matters more today than it did yesterday, because if you just memorize the data, you won't be such a special person anymore because you can look it up on the internet. That's the sad truth. Now, when you talk to people who are all about this creativity stuff, they all will talk to you about all these whiteboards and post-its, and we don't have to get into that, but actually it's a lot about seeing things and seeing things in space. And this is how I will link the whole story back to prezi quite soon. But linking it back to prezi, it will take me 4 points, 4 little Croats. And let's start first with this fragile moment, which I think is when you either feel creative or not feel creative. There's a really interesting person that I really like, that I will quote soon. So he's called Sir Ken Robinson. He's a British educational researcher. And one of his statements is that we all have been creative when we were children. It was there in us, and the school kind of took it away. This is how he looks. He's a really successful speaker on educational research and creativity. And there's just one story I want to quote from him. There's this story, there's this little child at a kindergarten and makes a drawing, and the teacher is asking, what are you drawing? And the kid is replying, I'm drawing a picture of God. Oh, but nobody knows how good the God looks like. And the child says, they will in a minute. And this is just, this is nothing special. All kids are like this. When they're small, they don't dare trying. They're just like, okay, I tried. I don't care if I fail. My mama will say it's nice anyhow. Right. The thing is that when you get through typical schooling, not every school, but most schools are like this, what you get is that success is rewarded, failure is punished. So when you're a wise person, you step back, you look at this, you say, I rather don't try. It's 50 chance of failure, that doesn't feel nice, I just don't try anyhow. And this kind of builds up in us over the years. Now, when you talk to people who are good with creative thinking, they say that what you have to do, you try a lot. And you reward trying, and then you go like, I fail, I succeed, I fail, I succeed. Sometimes I don't know, but basically when you have all these things in front of you, then you look at it, you see the options, I tried so many things, and then the whole thing becomes just much simpler. Then it's actually, I would say, like shopping. You just choose, there's all these ideas in front of me, maybe this one will work. So the whole process is simplified. Now the problem is this sounds in theory very nice, but in reality most people, when I see them trying, they actually stop after the first idea, first line, whatever it is what you're doing, first business plan. And this is, so I had an education on architecture, and this is a very typical thing that I suffered as a student, and then as a teacher I also saw that the student comes to the school, draws the first line, looks like this, and they go like, oh, I'm not talented. And they kind of get frustrated and stop trying. And in school, it's actually quite easy. When you do creative education, then you make students work hard, put their stuff on the walls for years and years, and you build up this confidence that it's okay. I try many times, and by the time they finish school, you have this confidence. Now that is okay, but what I'm interested in, because I said creativity matters today for the whole population, is how we can create something that helps people to have fun and be creative in their work today without years of education and learning to draw and all these kind of things. And I think there is this really interesting fragile moment that I'm after, or we are after in Prezi, that when you do something, you have to like it. Because if you like it, if you enjoy that little thing you did, you will do a new one and a new one and a new one. And if you're frustrated, you don't like it, you will stop and you will not continue. And if you are in this flow of happy creation, you will eventually create a lot of things. And even if your first thing was really bad and stupid, it doesn't matter because you have the options to choose from. And this is really the driving force, what we are trying to achieve, that create something that is partially relatively easy to create. So it's not like learning to play jazz improvisation or, sculpture, but it also gives joy, gives beauty to you. It's quite important, interestingly. So Prezi, this presentation tool, what it tries to achieve, that people come here, they press a few buttons, they put in a few ideas, they click this present button, and then they have this experience of joy. They suddenly see their ideas in a very visual way, and our hope is that starts to give them this flow that it's fun, they can play, they can continue doing it. Now, before I got into all this creative thing and kids, I actually talked about spaces. And there's one more thing that is really important for our vision, why we are working on this product. That when you work with ideas, you work with things you want to envision, and you present them to a number of people, you probably want to understand something, and you want others to understand your points. I want you to understand my points, and I actually want you to remember some of my points. And interestingly, when you look at a lot of research about visual communication, it's a very powerful tool compared to textual or written communication. First of all, even the word itself, understanding in most languages, it relates somehow to a spatial position. I stand far in German, I stand under in English. It's about having an overview of the things that kind of gives me this chance to see what are my options or what are the things that relate to each other. And what is not that known, but it's actually a really powerful thing, that spatial layout of information makes you remember it much more. Maybe some of you have this experience that you remember the pin codes by the shapes they look on your phone or on the entrance of a door, or on the, on the number card of a bank machine, and when you travel and the numbers are upside down, sometimes you just got it wrong all the time. Because this is how we can remember things easily. And there is one more story. There is these things called memory championships. Memory championships are places where people gather and they look at 10 packs of cards. They look at them for 5 minutes and they go away and they can repeat each card. And the funny thing is, when you talk to these people who won these championships, they say they usually, before they got champions, they didn't have a very specially good memory. They trained. They learned techniques that anybody can learn. And the most typical technique these people have is many times referred to as the memory palace. They imagine a space in their mind, a real physical space, and they just put the cards all over the space. Then in their mind they'll walk around, and then they remember the whole thing, right? So dots start to connect. I'm talking about spaces, but I'm showing this kind of zooming thing. How does it relate? Actually, with Prezi, it's a very typical thing. You have small and large things on a canvas, right? Now the thing is that if you would create a space where the words are in physical space, and you would create a perspective projection that the camera is looking at it, it doesn't rotate, just kind of pans and moves around, you will see the same thing. The trick with Prezi is that it's, compared to all these spatial authoring computer tools, which are extremely difficult to use, it's really, really simple. You just like scale and move things around, but the experience becomes very spatial, very physical. And as I said, it matters, because if it relates to physical space, you're more likely to remember. You're more likely, even unconsciously, to connect the dots in your mind to a physical, a spatial experience. So this is what we are after. And this is just some research about, measuring where people gaze when they watch different presentations. And with slides, it's much more scattered. With Prezi, it's much more focused because of the movement is very constant. So you get much more attention. And so I started off with all this creative thing here, just a little bit of points to that actually this tool, which I use now to present to you my ideas, it's used a lot to collect thoughts, to think. Because, once you get this creative flow, then you're not so frustrated anymore about the beautiful details. So you can actually join these zoomable canvases with your friends and create these maps of ideas, start to think together, or understand relations, map out processes, etc. These are just examples that are not really presentations. They are just maps of relations done in this program that helps people to think and come up with new things in their daily jobs. So, and we arrive to this tool, and we have, as I said, 29 million users, and the current growth is, which is the most exciting for us, that a lot of people are coming and trying and, and having fun with Prezi. And when you get this, you get all these books that people write, which is nice, and you are the dummies and all that stuff, and the nice press, and I got to be the prophet of Zoom. But I will get to the really cool thing. So these TED conferences you probably heard about, they actually invested, I will tell this story. They use it a lot. I still use it after all these years. I enjoy it. But this was the first time I believed that this is actually something real. This was like 4 years ago. He's a 70-year-old Canadian firefighter, and he wrote this email that, "Hi guys, thank you for doing Prezi. I felt creative again." And this message that I felt that this person is probably not the typical trendy Web 2.0, back then everything was called Web 2.0 person, but we created real value for this person. And yes, we have stars like this singer who's maybe not so popular anymore. But here you can see kids, these are from the Singapore English School in Singapore. And what is also really dear to my heart that I see that a lot of small kids, they just use this tool, use this format very intuitively. They don't get frustrated. They just like, you know, this is the space, here I put all the words, and then they do the research about the whale or whatever the school project is about. Prezi became first really popular in education, and it made me also really happy because it felt, yeah, there is quite good value there. So this is where we are, and now let's look at the story of making the startup. We are 3 co-founders, the Peters and me. We actually have 12 Peters at the company today, so or actually maybe more. So the first thing about co-founders, I think this is actually really, really interesting. And it tells a little bit the backstory of the whole thing. So when we met in 2009, we understood that if we really want to do this, it's like moving in together for like a decade. We have to stay together. We really have to like each other. You know, it's about us humans. It's not about the company or the shares or everything. So we actually spend days talking about things, just in life, what is interesting, what is boring, so we can understand each other and we can start to like each other or not. But luckily we liked each other. So now I get back, let's say, to the historical starting of this whole thing. So I studied architecture, but I became a media artist, electronic artist, these kind of kids who create things with computers that are supposed to be nice and beautiful, that you can see in galleries. It's a very fringe thing, it's not very mainstream. And I was always full of ideas for projects, products, etc. This is how I lived, and I was motivated by the global novelty of what I do. It has to be original and new and really special. And I get back to my limitations as well. Just a few examples. This is a simple idea. If you take a mirror, if you spin it around, then in all of your eyes, you will see different colors being reflected from the environment. And basically, if you create an array of such mirrors, and if you move them around cleverly, you can compose images from the ever-changing colors of the environment, right? So this is what we built with a Swedish hacker friend of mine from cheap car mirrors, because they are cheap. And they have all the parts in it, and they look nice, I think. And it's very low resolution, right? This was the Death Star from Star Wars. And here we see Batman. This is actually at a UK castle somewhere in the countryside at an art show. Okay, and stuff like this. So you get the idea. I was this guy who was constantly building things with technology that I enjoyed. This was a mirror where I could watch my brain, and not me really, but all the visitors, kids, old people could kind of slice through their brain in a mirror. It wasn't really their brain, it was the brain of my hacker friend who did the visual coding. This was 2005, before V and iPhone. Just because maybe now there is an app for this, I don't know. Anyways, and okay, just one more maybe. Then with an English and a Swedish friend of mine, we set out to take pictures of Wi-Fi, the internet, because we felt that Wi-Fi is such an everyday thing that makes us happy or sad when we travel and there is no reception. We should see it. It sucks, it's like weather, but we have no idea about how it really is. So we built this low-tech device that can actually take pictures of Wi-Fi. This is my home in Hungary, in Budapest, and this is how the different networks look like. This is Moscow, that was to them. This is a network from below us. You can see like it's coming from below, it doesn't reflect on the glass. It's actually real stuff. We even published it in a scientific journal. They don't have colors, but you know, the density and how they look, even if we scan again and again, it looks the same. And besides all the things, in 2000, I wrote a website for an architecture practice in Barcelona called Miralles with a friend of mine, which looked like this. Because I was really bored with like websites that look like magazines, very flat, very 2D, and with all my architecture and media art thing, I was really motivated to create something much more immersive and spatial. And practically what happened is that the code of this, I started to reuse to give presentations 10 years ago. I went to schools, not economic schools, but more like art schools, and I used this technology and I did a presentation that looked pretty similar to what I'm showing now with all the zooming. And here is my really interesting limitation. I didn't care if others use it. I was happy because I did it and people liked it, and maybe some friends borrowed it. Every year actually one friend borrowed it. So it was a very fast growth first year, and then it slowed down. And when we did these projects, I just convinced my friends, come over to my place, we give you food, we do things together. I was just motivated by creating things, not really scaling them. So this wouldn't have been Prezi. Now the second co-founder, Peter Halacsi, he's a computer scientist, really critical thinker, knows science a lot, loves science, and is always critical, but always in a very active way. So he was the first one who said that, I love this, what you do, I also want to borrow it as the 10th friend, but actually, Adam, it's not really good. Because if you think about it, we can make it so much simpler to use. So he was the first one who got critical and actually joined me and said, but I can help you. And I always loved collaboration, so I was, this is fantastic, let's do something together. Even the two of us, an academic computer scientist and artist, we just wanted a tool for ourselves. See, this still wouldn't have scaled. But what happened is that luckily we got in contact with Peter Arvai, the third co-founder, who's all of us became quite entrepreneurs over the years, but I think he's the most entrepreneur because he's the guy who's never satisfied with anything. He's always after global impact. And, before we met him, we already started to feel that this thing, we did a website, people started to use it, people started to say things like, I would like to invest. We had no idea, we ran to Wikipedia. And we understood we need a third co-founder to really make this something big. So we set out for a search. And this is actually very important because this is still with us today and why we are where we are, I think. That we understood that if it's a really useful communication format that helps people to think and communicate, it has a potential for everybody on this planet. Maybe we fail, but in theory, it could. So this is what we want to do. We were already happy and successful with what we did, so we just wanted to change the world with this tool. And we wanted to find a CEO who would feel that this power is a mean to achieve this change. And sadly, where I come from in Hungary, most people who become CEOs in companies, they just want to make money and they think power is a goal. And that really sucks, I think. So luckily, he was not at all like that, and he was the one who actually convinced us to quit our other things. I stopped doing art, Peter quit academia, and we sat down and founded the company. And we decided that let's create a world-class product from Hungary, because why not? Okay, so the second step, starter, no excuse, do everything needed, and time to market is very important. So when we started, we were not professional at all. Now if you look at Prezi, everything is shiny, all the videos we pay a fortune for them. But when we started, everything was like really humble. The core things the core magic was there, but everything else, we just, we were 4 or 5 people, so no excuse. If there is nobody who can do this and that, I just learn it and do it, and it's okay. So this was our website, it's very silly. This is my desk, and it's from another project, and cookies. Do people need a new presentation tool? People started calling random companies in Europe on Skype and trying to sell them the unexisting product. And just the way they responded, are they interested in a new presentation format? Then we could, start to get a feeling like, is there a real market for this or not? This is just a silly example, a poster I did for a conference that we wanted to pitch how cool Prezi is, and this is a typical artist thing. There's nothing here that you see. If you zoom in, these are actual Prezis sorted by color. Well, of course, it doesn't work as a poster, but this is the cute beginnings of how you do this. And still, we got nice reviews. This is a 30 out of 40 from Hong Kong PC magazine for a humble little tool. Now, the next step, so it gets started. People are interested. What do? We are like 4, 5, 6, 7 people. I think the next really important thing that we did was to open up and start learning, because we were not really the first ever internet company that started growing. We had no experience, but a lot of people had. So this was a really beautiful period, I think, where we just had to open our minds and look around. What can we learn? And here are some examples that I think worked well. So first of all, we understood that our most trusted friends advised us that actually the ownership structure and investors, it's a really, really important thing. Who do you trust to become your partner? Investors will be your partners in the business. So, if you don't have to really, don't take the money yet. And so basically we started by not spending at all, really keeping everything tight. And we managed to release the product and become cash flow positive just using our own effort and, some kind of sold prezis one by one, like, this is a nice prezi, do you want to pay for it? And this was a really good position because then we could have some time to choose the right partner for investment. Then the next thing, and this was a really brilliant move by Peter Arvai, that we were thinking, so who would be globally the most established person or institution who could approve that we are real and good? And we thought a lot about this, and we felt that TED conferences is like the world #1 conference thing, and if they say that this is a good presentation tool, it's probably good. And so Peter flew to New York. We didn't know anybody there. He kind of convinced the director of TED to meet him. He was very impressed that he could actually get in, so he started to listen. And then Peter convinced him to invest into Prezi. They haven't invested in anything before that. So he's very good at convincing people. And that was, of course, a fantastic thing, because after that, we became a really serious thing, like TED invested, yes. We were still the 5 people from a small town, Eastern Europe, but next step. This is really interesting, venture capital. So a lot of people try to start here, and I think it's a bad idea. But what we understood that if they are part of the team, it's a little bit the same discussion that, once we started the company with the co-founders, we spent so much time trying to understand each other's culture and what are our values, because it's a long-term commitment. So this is what we did. We even practiced on investors that were not so fantastic, so we could understand what are the typical questions. And then, we met these guys first. They are a Danish fund, and we just felt that our culture related a lot. Actually, by today, we also have Excel Ventures as an investor, which is one of the top 3 global venture firms. They are Facebook's first investor, a really nice company. But that's now like when we are big. But when we started, these guys were just perfect for us. And then there is the next really interesting thing. So you start an internet company from Hungary. You know what? I would even say London. I know this is very hard to compare. London is a massive city. Huge market, but still, compared to the United States market. So what we saw, first of all, we wanted to have something in Budapest because it's our home, and actually we wanted to prove the other Hungarians wrong, that yes, you can build a globally successful company from Hungary, because most people don't believe it, and just for why not? But then the reality is that we saw that in Europe, it was mostly all the Web 2.0 hipsters who use Prezi. In the US, it was kids and priests and people completely outside of the typical early adopter grid. We understood that presenting is so common there that it's just all over, the society. So the market is just incomparably bigger, even if it's size, it's more people, but also how much they care about presentations. So we understood that we have to go to the US. And once this is decided, we also understood that there is a place there, Silicon Valley, San Francisco, where there are so many internet companies that have been really successful that we can learn a lot from them. One of the key decisions why we did that we opened our offices there. And it really sucks because the time difference is so big that it really hurts us. But we learn so much from fantastic companies every year. In our stage of growth, we can talk to really inspiring companies that is just worth this effort. Other thing that happens, you start accidentally, you create a product in a startup, and all these fields and professions start to show up that actually existed for a decade, but you never heard about because it was not related to your work. And one of the most interesting for me was this user experience research. It's a science where people actually understand how people feel and think when they try a new product, a software, etc. And And we very early on we started using it because it's such an inspiring thing that we can see where people get frustrated, and it inspires us to change the product and change the product. And it keeps this open mind that we are here to understand and learn from reality, and then kind of shape our vision so it actually can function in the real world. I finished quite early, I'm sorry, but I guess you don't mind. Okay, the next thing, so we start to grow, cash flow positive, we understand we have so many ideas, so many dreams we want to do, we need people who do it. But you don't want to break the culture. And this is a very fragile moment. A lot of startups actually break here. And we've been really worried, so we worked very, very long, even before we started to grow, to make sure that everything will be fine. So this is an image from like a company renovation project where we have like poor neighborhood stuff 2 years ago and a year ago, and we are 160 people today, and these are mostly like very highly paid, very smart engineers. So it's a nice company. And I think one of the things, there's a few things that I will mention that I think make this growth possible for us. One is that we understood that one of the main reasons we have to be we have to keep a very high standard on skills of all the new people is that you will end up meeting a lot of people you haven't worked before yet. And when you have this suspicion that all these new people, they don't know, that can break a culture. Eventually, when we grow so fast, you will end up working with strangers. So what we made sure that anybody who you meet at Prezi is actually a really inspiring and smart person. So when you meet somebody new, like, yeah, this is interesting, so what do you do? And this actually works. You just have to, don't give up, if you see what I mean. So it's very high standards on not like papers and stuff, but like on the personalities, how open they are and how motivated they are intrinsically to do their work. The second thing is that basically we are here to crack visual communication globally. This is really hard. Nobody really knows how to do it. I mean, we have some ideas, but this is not a trivial job. So we need a lot of creative people, and creative people have their special needs, and I will talk a lot about these special needs now. So first of all, going back to power is a mean and not a goal. These people are happy because of what they do, and they are not here for the money. I mean, people get nice money to get a nice living, but the main motivation is the creative process and the vision. Which also means that we have to be really open and clear, and the integrity of the leadership, the management has to be very high, because we cannot fool these people, and then they lose their motivation. And we also work a lot together in a team to define some of these values that we think are important, because we can relate to them. This is a really interesting thing that, and in a lot of companies, when it starts to grow, it starts to become all about politics, like who knows who and what they say about who and who is here longer and who's friends of the boss. What we started doing is that because it's an internet product, and a typical license of Prezi is a free license where your presentations become public, we can actually look at data. We can look at if somebody starts on X day, how long does it take them to do a presentation, how many percentage gets to what point, etc. So our most important things are really, really easy to measure with big numbers. So it becomes very precise. And the interesting thing that if you start to become data-driven as a company, it removes politics from the company. Because you can create a team, kind of an independent team of smart individuals. You can give them a goal that we can measure. So it's very objective, but it's a very high-level thing. Like, can you fix this funnel, like this very high-end funnel of user something. And they have 6 months, and they can experiment, and they can measure their failure and their success. Basically, this means that if you start at Prezi just out of school, and if you do something smart, you can actually prove it with numbers. And the next day, you're the one who's right. It doesn't matter who you know and who's been there longer, etc. And this is actually a very rewarding thing for a lot of creative people. It's pretty similar to science, I think, where you can actually prove if you're wrong or right. But in some fields of science. And and it's still the same thing. All these people we have, what we do is this process that we test on some users, some new ideas, we tested data, some things work, some things fail, and the product is actually being changed every day. Actually, several times every day, prezi is changing a little bit. And it's trying to find its way through all this information that's coming from the users to become better and better and better. This is not unique. This is sometimes annoying when Facebook shifts around its buttons, but the truth is they actually measured it, and globally it's better for most people. So this is a really nice way to create a place for people who want to work in a creative space. Now, the next thing that is very dear to me because of my education is actually office space and architecture. And I just want to show you a few things. This is our San Francisco office, but I want to focus more on the one in Budapest. We found this really beautiful old building in the center of the city, and there is something special about it. It's an office building that doesn't have parking. So nobody in Hungary wants to rent it. We can get it for very reasonable money. And what is even more cool that it used to be like a patch bay, a telephone, a center where they connected calls manually 100 years ago. It was built for that. Even like from the little angels, you can see the phone headsets hanging. It's, we feel like it's part of our story. We're a communication company. It's very nice. And the spaces, there are a few spaces that are pretty amazing, and they've been just like left there empty for a decade. So we are extremely thrilled that we can bring life to it. And yes, still visitors ask like, so this is the management bridge, right? So this is where you watch employees. Of course. This is very much our culture, nice courtyard, etc. And we're going to build a nice conference space, but what I want to mention, a little thing, a very small thing that I think is actually shows what we're trying to build here. When you think very hard on a problem, many times what happens is that you can't crack it, you can't solve it, you think hard, and probably the problem is that you zoomed in too much and you don't really see outside the box. And then suddenly something unexpected happens, like a bird flies to your nose, whatever, and suddenly you get it. And you just had to be, derailed, and that helped you to solve a hard problem. So what we decided to do, that we collect strange and curious objects, and we hide them in the office in surprising places. And this is just one example. This is what a dad, the father of one of the coders, found. If you rotate the thing, then the two small things don't touch each other. Nobody knows what this is. It doesn't matter, because I think because of that, it has this power that you just like, oh, what is this? I don't get it. Ah, you see. And the last point about our stage, so we have, as I said, our growth is pretty intense, so there is a lot of attention on prezi. This is why I'm here, this strange guy from Budapest, what does he do in London? But also in Hungary, but even in the neighboring countries, Austria, etc., we get invited to an awful lot of startup conferences, because there are not that many startups who've been growing so fast. And even governments and the state and the EU is looking at like, oh, so how do you do this? Because people want more startups, more internet companies. And because we said our power it wasn't the goal, and this power with the attention, it's a power, and we try to use it. Here are a few things that we use it for, and which are the things that make us happy. We do have a lot of programs to help young people to get into entrepreneurship and understand how it works in the US, why it works better. So we want to change this notion of the entrepreneur, which in many parts of the world is like this shady person, and it comes with arrogance, with the big back car. This is why, of course, we have no company cars, we have the company bike repair person. Sadly, yes, in Hungary, racism is still an issue, and we try to be very public about how much we fight this and how much we support like the local Roma population with our manual work, etc. And then we can show these pictures in the national parliament, and that actually has an impact. And the same thing actually goes for the, openness. So we've been present on the Pride, and one of the recent successes that together with Google and one more company, we started a movement and convinced 100 other companies to join. Actually, in the end, it was 500 other companies who joined the Pride. In Hungary, companies normally haven't done that before. In San Francisco, Google is there every year. And it's a really simple reason. When you think about this as a company, or a CEO, or a manager of, it's really the people who will build, your employees who will build your success. And if you have the slightest chance that maybe the smartest person you can find is maybe gay, lesbian, whatever, and if they feel unwelcome in your company, that was just a really stupid move, even economically. You know, I think this is a beautiful example how Alan Turing, the father of modern computing, who cracked the code of the Nazis, he was British, he was kind of forced into suicide by the British police 50 years ago. This year he was finally pardoned, but only this year. So, you know, this, I think we just have to, and I mean, this is very normal in San Francisco, but also when I can show these pictures in the Hungarian parliament, I feel very proud that I can use this power as a mean and not as a goal. So, yes, we have 30 million users, but no, we are not ready because the potential market is much larger. People who use computers to communicate at school, to study, to teach, and at work, they are much more. I'm not saying everybody is going to present, so this is a theoretical top number of people who would watch maybe a prezi. But I'm still motivated by this very same notion that I started off with, that I feel creative when I use visual communication. The thing, it helps me. I could do this prezi on the airplane this morning. I didn't have to work a week for it because I could see things, I could see how they related, I got into the flow. And I really hope that we can help more and more people to, you know, to get into this feeling, and we can help them to feel creative, that they enjoy their work more. And I think that's it. And so we don't have a lot of MBA jobs. But if you know great engineers, we're a really fantastic company for it. I'm sorry, this is just our focus. Yes, thank you. And that was it.
I just want to thank Adam very much for that talk. Before we go home, I would like to have a short Q&A with Adam, if he doesn't mind.
No, please.
So you guys can really ask him anything that's on your mind about Prezi, about your own adventures, about starting up. I'm sure Adam has a little wisdom he wants to share. Also, just a bit of housekeeping. So if your fingers are fidgeting and you want to tweet, please tweet at Prezi and at LSE Entrepreneurs. Keep the conversation going, and we can continue this hopefully long into the future. And also, one last point, we are having a launch event on entrepreneurship this Friday. Check our website and please do come along if you like. Should I chair the questions, or would you like to just...
No, please. I mean, you don't have to, you can go. I was a student. But I'm very happy to answer if I can help you sincerely. Yes?
In terms of, you have your office in Budapest and then obviously offices in San Francisco. How does that affect the management style of the organization? Who's in which?
Yeah, so what we decided that there is no headquarters. Okay. The management is spread. Okay. Yeah, board members are spread. And we work hard. We actually spend an awful lot of money flying people around. So we feel like one culture. And there are a lot of, we have like 40 nationals, and like half of them working in Hungary, other half in the US. So it's very mixed. And this takes a lot of effort, but I think it's very important. Yeah?
I have a question in terms of kind of general business startup investment.
Yeah.
About how to kind of, what your recommendation would be to strike a good balance between, you don't want to expose your idea too much, but you want to do so to the extent that you can get angel investors or something. Is there something?
No, yes, I have a very clear. So just be very open, I think. So VCs, they won't sign an NDA. The non-disclosure agreement. It's a very simple reason. They see ideas every day. They would be stupid because a lot of ideas are actually very similar, and then people could sue them. Yes, ideas matter, that you have to get good ideas, but actually what is much more important is your mindset, that you can change direction, you can shift focus. We had no idea when we started about all these nice stories about creativity. We built it along the way because it's important for us. So I think if you have one idea, you will have 10 others, and investors will actually look at you. Are you the kind of person who maybe has some good ideas but can build a great team and also has the ability to pivot, to change? Because a lot of the ideas, when you test them on the market goes like, and you go like this. And if you have this skill, then you will succeed. So I wouldn't be protective at all.
Okay.
Yeah?
So this is a social science school.
Yeah, nice.
What do you suggest for an entrepreneur that want to do an internet-based company, which don't know how to program and don't come from this sort of...
So I was an architect, okay? I mean, nobody taught me how to program. So there's two things you can do, and I actually enjoy both. One is to just learn it and do it, because things are pretty easy. So if I could learn as an architecture student to do all these things, the zooming website I showed, that's like 50 lines of code. I learned programming because I wanted to do that website. It took 1 month. It's easy. But you don't have to if you don't feel like, but I sincerely think in 5 years, 10 years, everybody will learn programming, because it's part of technological literacy, like kids will learn it, because you don't have to become an engineer, but you feel more at home within the internet society. The second thing that I sincerely think that ideas actually happen between people. An idea is just as good as the idea that will replace it, that somebody else gets triggered and says, and back and forth. So I think what you have to do is to find people. Not people that you just want to pay, and I don't care who you are, just do this website for me. Because I don't think then it will be good quality, because they won't put their mind, their creativity to it. You have to find somebody who you trust. Like I had to find my computer scientist co-founder, and we had to find our CEO co-founder, and together we could build this thing. And if it really scales, it really grows, it doesn't matter if you were 1 or 3 at the beginning. Yes?
You say you just got along with your co-founders, but you needed a CTO and a CEO. Where did you find them?
But they are the CTO and the CEO.
Yeah, but where did you find them initially?
No, yeah. So actually, So the CTO, who became CTO first, he was trying to become head of product, and so we actually. We kind of found our places in the organizations. It wasn't trivial from day one. So we met at a university research lab, and that's where he was critically positive, that inspired me that we do something together. And the funny thing that our CEO, we found that he wanted to steal our CTO, Peter, for the company he was working at in New York, and we kind of stole him back. But I think it's just like, the chemistry, that you meet people and you kind of see it pretty fast, that are the values, are the things they are interested in compatible to what you want to do. And not just like anybody who went to business school is a CEO, but it's more important that this person was the kind of person we were dreaming about. And by the way, he also had some education here, but also he learned a lot over the years. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I was just wondering how to find, if you're in desperate need for a specific person to co-found or to start your company, where to find those people? In your case it was... I
don't know, but by mistake, today's lecture was retitled as How to Network at Parties. So if you actually end up in that lecture, it's talking to people, being open. You can post an ad. You can do an audition for CEOs, I think. It's cool. You just have to be very careful, to find them.
Would you say you were lucky finding them?
Yes. But I enjoy meeting people, so I wasn't like alone in a corner. You have to do something for it, yeah.
I think it's quite important, as the lady was saying earlier, you have to expose your idea to people, and then people enjoy it and they'll be fascinated by it, and then you can have a real conversation about if they are interested in helping you and how they can help you. And I guess that's how you maybe meet with potential partners and people you work with down the line sometimes. So
it's socially okay to leave. I see some of you like, I have to go now, but I don't know if I can stand up. Yes, but I'm happy to answer, yeah.
I have a question about the project you mentioned that you were doing to promote that around the world or in different cities. So.
Well, it's more for Hungary. Sorry. Because here you have so many options, but...
What are you doing that? Because we're also, or a friend of mine and I are also trying to do that in London, so I would be...
Yeah, so basically what we decided we do is that for me it was a shock and an amazing experience to see how some of the most successful internet companies work in Silicon Valley. Just like, wow, this is how you do things. It was really advanced and open and happy and efficient. So what we did that we put up... There's actually two things. One is a kind of program for internship that we push people to different places, and then when they come back, we pay for the visa, we do everything, and when they come back, they have to do videos, like they have to tell the story to other young people. So because if you hear it from a peer, it's much more real. The other thing we do, we actually looked out and found 3-4 other successful internet companies that were kind of hiding, that were successful, but they never said they are from Europe, because it's, it's just a .com is something. And we actually convinced them to come out, be public about being an internet company from Europe, and then we started to like organize books about the conferences. So, and the reason is very simple. I was at this nice TED conference in Oxford 2 years or 3 years ago, and it was a very shocking thing because I met the founder of Transparency International, and one of the microbanking, and I suddenly saw that these are simple people who started all these great things in their little rooms, just with like one line of idea, and it grew. And then I understood that everything I know and love, it probably started with 1 or 2 people doing something really small. And then it kind of demystified for me that you can actually do a lot of things. Maybe you will fail, so it's no guarantee, but everybody started small. And because of this, we try to share the story that, hey guys, we are here, we started small, we started from here. In theory, you can do the same. Maybe in London there is already, I don't know, but yes?
First I want to say that I'm really happy you're here because I'm a huge fan.
Thank you.
I've been using it since 2010.
Very cool.
And I somehow managed to introduce it to the East Radio company in Shanghai. The marketing department, they're using it for internal purposes. Before the simplified Chinese was supported, actually.
Thanks.
So actually,
You
yeah,
have screenshots. Yeah,
two
thanks.
questions.
Yes.
One, do you have any marketing or branding plan for Asia?
So we have an office in Tokyo and we have an office in Seoul. And in South Korea, we're actually doing pretty amazing. That like in national TV, the presidential candidates last fall, they pitched using prezi. And there's like this soap operas on TV, and prezi kind of comes in and they talk about it, and then they move on with some kind of personal fight. It's very, I love this. It's very. Japan is much harder because the presentation, you're not supposed to stand out with your presentation. You're supposed to blend in, so we have a challenge. And China is just hard because of we can see how Google failed, Facebook failed. So it's just.
No, I don't think so.
Thank you. So I will email you, or you can email me, and I ask you what you think. My email is adam@prezi.com. Okay. So yes, but ideas are greatly appreciated. Thanks.
Second question is similar.
Yes.
I haven't been using Prezi for the past 6 months because I have been working for a management consultancy. Do you have any idea how could you get into the professional business?
So we have, 90% of Fortune 500 companies use Prezi, but it's mostly like the marketing department and executives and stuff. And basically what is the reality that to serve like the corporate market, you have to grow much more. Because if I go to, I don't know, IBM and say, do you want to use Prezi? They say, here is a list of 200 pages that you have to fix for us, and then we buy 10,000 licenses. Which is a nice money, but it takes 2 years to build. So this is why a lot of companies like us, first we focus on the prosumer individuals who just use their own credit card because they want to be successful. They don't care. They don't call IT. It's very typical. And then we are quite good with client-facing consultancies, marketing, people who want to be establish themselves as brands, etc., speakers. And slowly, so we work very hard, but it takes time because it wouldn't be the wisest for us to focus right away on the most tricky market.
I think it's very interesting because I was working in Germany and it's a really big strategic consulting company. They're afraid to use anything that didn't look boring because they try to be very careful with the clients.
Yes.
So that's like a branding, actually image
Yes.
kind of thing.
You're right, and that happens too. And we will not be everything for everybody. It's also we have to accept that in some cases you don't want visual communication.
Right.
Yes, but thank you. Yeah.
You said you were waiting a long time until you reached to investors.
Yes.
So how do you finance yourself at the meantime?
So we did. For us, I think it was probably easy because what we did, we had the software. We were not fully ready so that people can pay for it online because that's a lot of technology development. What we did, we sold presentations one by one. We went to people like, you can have this really cool future. We do your presentation, we use our own magic technology, but we charge you €1,000 for one file. And they did it because they had this big talk, etc. So we kind of very more like consultancy mode, but very, very limited, so we can focus on building up the product. Now, this is of course not possible in every situation, that's clear, but yeah, for us it worked great. And our investor, so actually what happened that we managed to do this, so we actually released Prezi, that people could use it and pay for it. It left private beta. And there was a lot of buzz on Twitter. People talked about it, I love Prezi, etc., etc. And this is how the investors found us actually. He was like, I see people talk about you on Twitter. Do you have money? This was basically his first email. But then we checked if he's nice, but yeah. So I think it was good for us, but not in every. So if you're in like life sciences, hardware, then you might need money up front. But there's a lot of money nowadays, so I think, actually. Yes, I come back to you when I, yes.
Thank you very much for the story, it's amazing.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, at which stage did you actually protect your product, sort of like intellectual property?
Yes, quite late. So we managed to get Jack Dorsey, who's one of the founders of Twitter, as one of our advisors. And we asked him when we were very young, and he said, they never do IP because it takes 5 years. And where was Twitter 5 years ago, Facebook? It's just too slow compared to how fast things happen. But by the time you grow, and this is the advice we got and that we actually did, once we got decent size, we actually started to file for patents for certain solutions because then it's a portfolio. But I hope this whole thing will go away in the future. It's very nonsense. You had a, yes?
Hi. Yeah. So you said you're an architect. To begin
Yes.
with. So was there like a particular point when you actually like plucked up enough courage to actually go and start a tech company? Like when was there a particular point in your idea
No.
when you're like, okay, I'm gonna leave my career and I'm gonna start doing that instead?
Yeah. So basically, I left architecture to become a media artist, which is half tech thing because I work with computers. I learned programming and hardware stuff. And then from there, it was a very natural shift because the product was born there. And then, it was Peter, co-founder, who convinced me that I should stop doing the art stuff. And when I saw that old firefighter who felt creative because of Prezi that I showed, that was like, I really remember that moment that I felt that this is real, this is not just another funny project, which was real too, but this is like real. Yes?
The project that the process that you showed basically for building your product, that kind of looks a lot similar to everything that Eric Ries writes, like this build, measure, learn in the lean startup and so on. So like how much did that like completely, did you invent that yourself?
No, it's so I know lean startup is very popular. Actually, Toyota has been working like this for 2 decades or something. And they invented it. And we use this system called Kanban, which is little cards. And so we looked at Toyota and we felt that this is how we want to work, interestingly. Yeah. But I think it's really good. So the movement is great and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that was kind of the question because it looks like you kind of did that 5 years before you started writing.
Yeah, but it was, we looked at another company who did it 10 years before. And probably he looked at Toyota too.
Firstly, I'm a big fan of Prezi. Secondly, I was just wondering, where does Prezi go from here? Are you guys looking to probably launch a new product or like venture into some new area or something like that? Or
yes, I understand. So we still want to focus, even if we're 100, 200 something. We feel like cracking this thing is actually hard and doesn't really work for a lot of people yet. Some people use it because it looks nice, some people stop using it because it takes a long time, some people enjoy it, but this is, I think, where it brings the massive value, and I think we have to improve the product a lot still from today. And some recent things, of course, if you look at, I think on iPad, Prezi is it feels even better because it feels like it was born to be a touchscreen device thing. And by the way, if you look at the new iPhone OS, it looks a lot like Prezi. But we didn't do it and they didn't talk to us. But it's, I mean, the idea of structuring with zooming is also 20 years old from academia. Yeah. Yes?
I have a quick question. I don't know, how does Prezi work in terms of pricing?
It's free as long as you publish publicly whatever you do. If you have secrets, we ask money because secrets will make you money. And this is a very good business plan because it works globally. We have paying customers from Nepal and we didn't do any market research in Nepal. Yes?
So I have a question.
Yes.
You've talked a lot about the success you've had in this, it's fantastic, but what were some of the challenges you guys faced maybe earlier on when you didn't have all the kind of backing from?
Yeah. No, so I remember when, before we found Lean and Kanban and all this, we started to work with deadlines. And somehow creative people hate deadlines, or it's just, and it was always frustration, failure, because everybody said that, but I work to my best of my abilities, why do you want me to do it by then? And so basically what we do is that it's the responsibility of more senior people who kind of see the processes, that they actually accept deadlines. But on everyday work with coding and design, it's much more just a continuous flow of high quality, productive work. So that was it took us a lot of time to find this. And before that, a lot of like frustrating, doesn't work, couldn't release for months, etc. Then there was this, two technology things. One was the Black Friday, when if you heard of chat roulette, where you randomly see people, we had this show for 3 days or something. We had this Prezi roulette. This was like 5 years ago, very early on, where you logged in and you randomly logged into different people's accounts. That's like really bad. And basically it was a tiny, very strange one-line error in the code that wasn't trivial and only under high pressure. So it took us a lot of time to find it. And also on the first year, Prezi was down for like 4 or 5 days, the servers, and some people emailed us that, hey guys, I couldn't present my diploma. So it really, really sucked. I felt like this is slowly dying now. And basically the company who said have great servers in Berlin, they were like a fraud. They actually had it they said in Amsterdam, then in Paris, then nobody. And for days, all the users' data was like, we had no idea where. So after that, we just started to pay for the most expensive available servers on the world. And we still do that because it's worth it, yeah.
So, yeah,
yes.
Question. So I'm actually really fascinated by tech startups, but I'm an economics graduate. So to someone to probably, venture into this field, I mean, how does one go about it? Because I have absolutely no...
Read the story of Amazon. Amazon is MBA startup. Some startups are starting from... So I don't have experience. I never did that process that I sit down, I try to analyze the world and try to find leads and come up with product ideas. I don't know how to do that. I come from the other end that I do things and suddenly, oh, this works. Can we do a startup? But I know a lot of people succeed there too. It's just, don't forget that there's probably another few thousand people thinking about the same thing, like what could I do? What you can also do, one of the reasons I showed you how we started and who we are is that you can actually see that one of the persons who founded this company was a very unlikely person, like this creative technologist, artist, strange guy. A lot of people like that are in London. And they don't care really about doing products and growth like I didn't. So maybe you can even find people who you find inspiring and they may already have like 20 products. They just don't care to grow them. Yeah. But if you read up on Amazon, I think that might be an inspiring story. And that's it. Thank you.